everyone hear me okay? If not, I'll get way louder. All right, well, good morning again, guys. So I hope that you had a good week. If you didn't, well, hopefully this week is better. Because 2 weeks ago, Sarah and I, we thought there's no possible way we could handle one more thing. With the two twins, with projects going on, with everything that we wanted to do and everything that we should do and everything that we did do, we thought we can't handle one more thing. And then that little town just northeast of here, half an hour or so, was flooded, Correctionville. And if it wasn't for this church, I guarantee you that cleanup in Correctionville would have not gone as smoothly and as well as it did. I mean, everyone was surprised of how fast how fast we were able to get into places, all the volunteers, help the people and the homeowners, and get stuff out so we didn't have to worry about mold or mildew. So thank you. And I will give you a thank you, even if you didn't hear it, for taking out. I know some of us took out, or not, I didn't, but some of you guys took out 50 foot of like corner bead that's nailed every half inch. If you didn't hear, thank you, I will say thank you. If someone didn't catch you to say thanks for cutting drywall, pulling nails, being a listening ear, shoveling muck, carrying heavy brute garbage bins, I will say thank you. And if you're thinking, I wish that I would have been able to help, but weren't able to physically make it, I will say thank you for being a part of a church who responded the way they needed to respond. God took care of what He wanted to do. So thank you for being here. So I'm going to start this morning by showing you something that I think is absolutely hilarious. It's been a great new adventure becoming a dad, but I have definitely noticed there is a difference between the way moms parent and the way dads parent. I can't tell you how many times Sarah comes blasting into a room and is like, "Were you even watching him?" I mean, like, well, he was close. So, but this video I'm about to show you shows how God makes up for that in man's character by giving dads a secret set of ninja skills to make up for them lacking maybe in children's supervision. So here you are.
This is going again. Going again. John, don't hit him towards the swing. Good boy. Donnie boy!
Hi, Ty! Are you swinging on your new swing? Whoa!
So impressive. It's impressive. But could you imagine if one of those dads, and I don't know if I would have ever admitted to any of those, would have tried to describe to a friend what almost happened, but it didn't. How bad it could have turned out just if it was a second later or half a second longer, but didn't. Do you think while trying to tell those stories that people would have been like, well, that's unbelievable. There's no way that could have happened. Only to then see a video that proves what they were just told was true. And I wonder if Peter, as we're concluding some of these Peter messages, if he was along the same lines of trying to tell his original audience about someone. Do you know him? about someone who is legit, someone who is true, someone who exists, but he's having a hard time with words that cannot do justice for what he knows. A truth that says that hardships you go through now are not wasted. The surgery that you have coming up will not be the end game. The relationship that is broken or tattered will not be the end of your life. The pain that you feel will one day subside. The truth being that the glory of God through Jesus will be shared with us. Just a small idea. But do you know him? Peter has a few different topics that we covered. Remember, he's known as the apostle of hope. He's known as the apostle of hope. He's confident. He knows what he wants. He knows what he wants to convey. He's talked about suffering, future inheritance, salvation. But an underlying tone through the book of 1 Peter is this small word, glory. Any working definitions come to mind when you think of glory? Anything that you would say, well, this is the definition of glory, and a friend would like nod in agreement. Oh, yeah? Any luck? Anything you guys can come up with real fast? Because good luck. Because is glory, is it talking about something descriptive? Or it was glorious? Is it talking about something of a place? Because we go on to be in glory. What, is it a comment? Sure, yes, and you betcha. And here are just a few definitions. You can read through them all. I'll just cover the first part. It's a weighty importance. That's the Old Testament idea of the Hebrew word. It's of weight. It has weight to it. High renown or honor. The singular splendor of God. Magnificence or great beauty. To take pride in or pleasure in. To praise, worship, and thanksgiving. So I don't know where you can land when talking about glory, rather than it is an attribute of God. And as I've been reading through 1 Peter, I thought it was interesting how he goes about explaining why we should endure, why we should get through, why we should push on, be holy, stand upright, don't be discouraged. And Peter doesn't use the frustrated parent excuse of, well, because I told you so. Or he doesn't say, well, because you're supposed to. He keeps reminding the original readers that our glory is strong. It's reliable. That God's glory is something that's going to be forever. Not a wish, but an absolute truth. That we will share in Christ's glory. Do you know him? Do you know the one who has the glory? And in this short book of 1 Peter, there are around 11 verses. So I'm going to be quoting from the ESV. I mean, there's the NIV, the NLT. You ever discover why you're in like Bible study or church sometimes and you're reading your Bible, you're trying to be a good steward, bring the Word of God with you, and then suddenly they're reading and you're at the right place and then the words aren't matching up. So if the words aren't matching up this morning, we're in the ESV, so you can just look at the screen. But anyway, in this short book, and at least in the ESV, there's 11 verses in 1 Peter, and they all use glory in a few different ways. And at the end of chapter 1, Peter quotes from Isaiah 46 through 8. And this is what it says. A voice says, cry. And I said, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, the flower fades. When the breath of the Lord blows on it, surely the people are grass. The grass withers, the flower fades. But the word of our God will stand forever. I don't know if I'm alone in this, but sometimes I hear or I see or I read what someone does or know about God, and I think, boy, do I have so much more to learn. And then for some reason you let me preach on Sundays. Well, this verse, Isaiah 40, verse 6, a voice says, cry. And I said, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, and all beauty is like the flower of the field. This verse will do two things for us. It will show us that even though the scholars who are entrusted with providing readable, even more literal, maybe more paraphrased versions of the Bible, sometimes they can't even agree what one word from one language transliterates into another. And on the other hand, it proves the difficulty of talking about our subject today, that little word, glory. And we're going to focus on a portion of that verse 6. And all its beauty is like the flower of the field. So I talked about there's different versions of the Bible. When the Old Testament was predominantly written in Hebrew and a little bit of Aramaic. And the first translation of the Old Hebrew into Greek was called the Septuagint. And the Septuagint, for that word that we're reading as beauty, when they saw that Hebrew word, they translated it into the Greek word that we get, glory. And the Septuagint writers used this word, but wait, there's more. There's more meanings. You read different translations or different versions, this is what you'll see instead of that word beauty. You'll see beauty, of course, like we just read. You'll see goodliness, constancy, faithfulness, loveliness, and loyalty. The only one that I have trouble with is goodliness, but yes, it is a word. How are you feeling today? It's just been a goodliness week. So some of you thought that was a typo. I promise I did check. But how do you describe the word glory? In the Old Testament, we said that it was linked with this heavy weight that could be given, that could be taken, that was not just attributed to God, but also to man. But Peter uses it in his book, then the New Testament writers use it primarily to explain God's glory. And based off his past, Peter's past experiences, he is serious. And we'll come back to this. But right now, let's divide and conquer. So first, man's glory. What is that, if I can use this word in such a way, that you glory? If you were to ask me, I would say it's easy. I think of 3 people, Sarah, Elias, and Jace. Someone says, wow, your wife must be strong to handle taking care of your 2 boys and you. Well, thank you. But yes, a compliment paid to Sarah is a compliment paid to me. I'm lucky to have such a gal. That's something I glory in. People will say when we're out and about, Sarah does this awesome job of arranging the times the boys are exposed to the public eye and then when they're losing it inside her house. And people will say, your boys have such a pleasant demeanor. I'm like, well, thank you for thinking that. But a compliment paid to them is a compliment paid to us. We glory in. If you talked about on the work side, I'll have old carpenters sometimes, they come and they visit and they'll say before they leave, Jimmy, this looks really, really nice. A compliment paid to the project I'm working on is a compliment paid to me. It's something I glory in. What is that which you glory? Is it how you look, how you behave, how you misbehave? Are you known as a rebel? How you work, the money you have, the people you know, the land you own, the farm you operate, the car you drive, the reward you receive, the degree you earn, the career you chose, the endurance you possess, or the stubbornness you practice? What do you glory in? And it doesn't have to be a sin. It could be, but it doesn't have to be a sin. Remember, you can glory in things, in the worldly definition, that you're legitimately proud of. But I want you to remember something when we're talking about the glory of man. Because do you have something in mind? It could be a sport, an image, a name, a possession, an amount. But here's the catch. And I'll talk to Peter when I get to heaven and ask him how close I was to his line of thought. And he'll probably say, not very. And I'll just refer to him as Pete for the rest of eternity. But the catch is, what we glory in here on earth is fragile. It's fragile. I want you to realize that when the flood was coming in Correctionville, a neighbor stopped by as the water had entered onto Sarah and I's property. It hadn't yet receded. It kept getting closer and closer and closer to our house. And the neighbor asked, do you guys need any help? We can start moving stuff out. We can start taking stuff to my dad's shed. In which I said, thank you so much, but no, we're good. We're taken care of. Everything's been done. And I didn't know what to say because he said to me, he's like, it's such a shame, Jimmy, because for everyone's house that was flooded. I mean, Sarah and I didn't have to worry about that. But he's like, you've worked so hard on your house. I didn't know what to say, so I just said, well, I should have paid attention closer to Sunday school when I heard, don't store your treasures up or on earth where moth and rust destroy, but rather in heaven. And I just shrugged, and I'm like, well, we'll just see what happens. We were in people's houses after the flood in town who were affected by the water, and they were so close to being done renovating. And then we go into their house, we expose the studs, we get everything so it's dry, and even though they're so thankful, they're at a place now that's worse off than it was when they first started renovating. And you look down, or maybe it's not an old house, maybe you feel pretty good about your finances and you look down the line at a check that should be coming in from work or from an inheritance or from a sale, and out of nowhere it falls through. Instead of you getting an amount of money that you were looking for, that you're planning on, somehow a nasty bill that you forgot about or something unexpected takes its place. Have you ever experienced that child you've poured so much into and you wonder what's going on now with their behavior, with their distance? Do you idolize what you used to look like or what you do look like, how strong you used to be, and want to remind people of what you were capable of or what you are capable of? Remember, what you glory in on earth is fragile. As Isaiah said, it will go away, just like the flower of the field. All right, second, God's glory. One of the definitions of glory is simply God's majesty and might. I don't know how you start to explain it. Some of the Bible writers, they get close, they use great words to talk about the glory of God. And when we read through 1 Peter and the emphasis on salvation through Jesus Christ, who God has glorified, we can see where Peter's focus is. Not on something, but someone. Do you know him? Do you know him? And the New Testament shows us that God's glory is without compare. To glory in something other than God, it's weak. It's weak to have a worldly glory, to glory in something that is going to end. It is of no gain and of no substance when talking about the glory of God. Look at part of this verse in 1 Peter 4:11. This is actually part of one of his prayers. Whoever speaks as one who speaks the oracles of God. See what they're saying. Peter's saying, whoever does something, don't do it for yourself. Do it for the one whom you should be glorifying. Whoever serves as one who serves by the strength that God supplies, in order that in everything God may be glorified. Through Jesus Christ, to him belong glory and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Peter is saying that we are to focus on who? Do you know him? Saying that we should be glorifying who? Not proud that we can achieve more than the other person. Rather that we get to be an instrument that does good work while being part of a plan. And sometimes it's not this, you feel like you're doing something godly. It's not this, you feel like you know exactly what God has put in front of you and you need to do that. Sometimes it's simply just doing your job. Getting through the grind of day by day by day. Because we're talking about God's glory that Peter puts a time stamp on. Because how long? Just a few days? No. Just a week? No. A lifetime? No. Forever. Remember too what Peter has explained. He has seen Jesus in physical glory. He has seen the glory of God that's not fragile. It won't burn up, flood, be divorced, flop, break down, become distant, go belly up. It will be forever. And remember in Matthew 17 verse 2, Peter, James, and John, they're led to a mountain and they see Jesus in his physical glory. And this is what Matthew records. And he was transfigured before them. He was transformed before them. And his face shone like the sun. And his clothes were as white as light. I didn't know light was a color. But how are you supposed to describe when you see the glory of Jesus? And Peter is so convinced. Remember, he is the apostle of hope, that we will one day be where he is. That we will one day experience what he saw. That we will one day be with him, who he was with, and a part of the plan that he now orchestrates. 1 Peter 5:1 says, "So I exhort the elders among you, as a fellow elder and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, as well as a," pay attention, "partaker and the glory that is going to be revealed. Peter says partakers. He is saying that the hope that we have, that the glory that Christ has, that we get to be a part of that as his followers. And it is for certain. That is how Christians get through the trials. Remember, it's not a piece of twine on a cinder block. Remember Jim using that? It's a piece of rope. There's no doubt. It will happen. It will take place. It's not something fragile. It's not a check in the mail that you're waiting for. It's cash in hand. It's not a drive to a friend's house. You're at the door. Christians who glorify God, Christians by glorifying God, should know the glory of God is right there. And don't we all want to understand exactly how to continually pursue a God who wants us to be with him? What's the synonym for heaven? Wants us to be with him in glory. Peter is telling suffering Christians that God's glory will be shared with you. And right now, our job is to continue to glorify God through Christ by living in a way that shows the world around us. We don't have to stick out like a sore thumb, but we should know that this is not our home, that a place awaits that is better, a place that awaits where we will be physically with Jesus. Do you remember that? Do you know him? The best answer I have came from me killing the battery in my truck last Thursday at a job site. It was foggy. I turned the lights on, forgot to turn them off. I hate the buzzer in the pickups, so I always yank them out. So that means my batteries always die, but thank goodness for good Napa batteries, but this was the end of it. So I hop into the truck to move it, and it doesn't start. So I hop into another pickup. Don't worry, I got permission to hop in the other pickup. And as I'm bringing the truck around, the 2 minutes it took to pull the other pickup around to mine, the radio station in that pickup was turned to bot radio. And the bot radio, whoever the guy was who was speaking, he talked about something that I have completely missed. Who was thrown in the lion's den? Daniel. And I've never noticed this about this story. But you remember when the other officials, they get jealous of Daniel because God is blessing Daniel time after time after time. So they go to King Darius and they say, hey, we came up with this excellent idea, King, because we are way better than anybody else that you know. So here's the law that we think that you should put into act. And remember what the law was? The law was no one in your kingdom can pray to anybody else except for you, Almighty King. And in a moment of pride, the king thinks this is a wonderful idea, signs it into act, and the Bible's pretty explicit in saying this law cannot be revoked. This law cannot be overturned because the king actually does like Daniel. And this is what I have missed until I was in that pickup. It's Daniel 6:10. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, Daniel knows. This is his response. Daniel knows this document, what it was saying. Basically saying, this is going to kill you, Daniel. This is going to be something that you are going to break. This is going to be the means by which your execution is going to take place. Pay attention. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had windows open in his upper chamber toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed. And he prayed that the king would somehow overturn it. He prayed that somehow he would be spared. And he gave thanks. He prayed and he gave thanks before his God as he had done previously. Somehow, some way, Daniel's conviction, Peter's conviction, that what you get today when you are glorifying God is a peace that is beyond this world. There's a preacher back in the 1970s, and he tries to do a good job. The actual sermon is over an hour long, but he tries to do a good job of explaining the attributes of God, of who his king is. And he asks the question, do you know him? I got just a small clip of how hard it is in explaining the glory of God in just our words. But this is the closest I found.
The Bible says, my king is the king of the Jews. He's the king of Israel. He's the King of righteousness. He's the King of the ages. He's the King of heaven. He's the King of glory. He's the King of kings, and he's the Lord of lords. That's my King. I wonder, do you know him? My King is a sovereign King. No means of measure can define his limitless love. He's enduringly strong. He's entirely sincere. He's eternally steadfast. He's immortally graceful. He's imperially powerful. He's impartially merciful. Do you know him? He's the greatest phenomenon that has ever crossed the horizon of this world. He's God's Son. He's a sinner's Savior. He's the centerpiece of civilization. He's unparalleled. He's unprecedented. He is the loftiest idea in literature. He's the highest personality in philosophy. He's the fundamental doctrine of true theology. He's the only one qualified to be an all-sufficient Savior. I wonder if you know him today.
Do you know him? Not a fleeting feeling of accomplishment in the world's use of what you glory, but the root sense that you will be taken care of past death's door. You see, God's glory isn't for us to think about, it was meant for us to experience. So hopefully our perspective on life won't be reliant on our collections that will fade away, or a skill set that will one day be put away, or remodeled houses that will one day be torn down. Rather, an unchanging, eternal God who looks to those who will glorify His Son, so that He may bring them in His presence one day in true glory. Not an idea to talk about, but a truth today to experience. Can we close in prayer? Dear Lord, I thank you so much for your Son. I thank you so much for people like Peter putting their pen down on paper and writing about things that they're trying to tell us thousands of years later. About when Peter saw Jesus rise up and him just be exposed, just being light of something that we do not understand this full term of what glory means or what your glory is, but one day that we will be able to be a part of it and get this small chunk right now. Thank you so much, God, for being a God who cares for us, who watches over us, and thank you for your Son's sacrifice that is available to all of us. In Jesus' name, amen.